So if you'll tell everyone what you do exactly. I know, but they need to know. So you'll tell them what you do exactly.
Sure. I'm Will Evans. I'm the founder and publisher at Deep Vellum. We're a nonprofit literary publishing house and literary arts center here in Dallas, founded in 2013. So we publish underrepresented and undertranslated and unheard voices from around the world. Authors from right here in Dallas, whether they're from North Dallas or Pleasant Grove, as well as authors from 90 other countries.
Wow.
And then we host events.
Yeah, clearly, right? Yeah.
Our mission is to bring everyone in the conversation.
And you're stylish, obviously. Yeah.
Only
So let me ask you a question, and this is going to be kind of deep-seated. You are a white gentleman, obviously, right? What's your motivation to help with racial inequality and inequities? Why? You don't have to, so why would you do it?
Do I not have to? I disagree.
According to societal standards, you don't have to do it.
I guess so.
You could just fly by the seat of your pants, do whatever you want. But why do you take this route? Why?
I don't know, man. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina, and when I was 14 years old, I learned via reading the newspaper, which I did every day. You can imagine a young nerd in Wilmington reading the paper every day. And I read this headline in there, and it said, "Black leaders rebuffed in efforts at memorial." And I was like, memorial for what? So I read the article, and it was the African American leadership of Wilmington, North Carolina were coming together to try to build a memorial for the 1898 coup d'etat and racial lynchings and murders that had happened that I had never heard of. And I grew up in Wilmington, and I said, what is this? And I read into it and started trying to read sources, primary sources, some historical stuff, and found out that this event had happened, and there was no memorial for it. And the city council told the leaders, they said, we can't build a memorial to something that didn't happen. There's nothing to build a memorial to. So a 14-year-old kid, white kid from the South, right? Like, I started going, wait a minute, I've always wondered if this is a story, what am I not being told? That's what it boils down to, man. Like, there is an official version of history, and it's not always the full picture, and we have to go out there and find the stories and elevate the voices of what's not being told. And so what's kind of amazing, 2 years ago, a book about that 1898 coup won the Pulitzer Prize for history. It took 122 years for that story to get popularized. So that essentially, and when we say popularized, white readers popularized it. So this is the same thing with the Accommodation. I moved to Dallas. I wanted to learn more about the city that was going to be my new hometown. My wife is from Texas. My kids are born here. So now I'm like a proper Dallasite. And everyone I met was like, oh, you're starting a publishing house in Dallas. You need to publish the Accommodation. And I was like, what's the Accommodation? And they handed me that printout PDF. And they're like, read this. And it was like, okay, you got this guy, Jim Schutze. He's the most controversial writer in Dallas. And then you got John Wiley Price involved, the most controversial politician in Dallas. And I was like, whoo, this book is amazing because this is the other story. How can I grow into being a publisher who could publish this and elevate the story? Because this is the beginning of a conversation. Do you know what I mean? It's the genesis of what Dallas doesn't know about itself. Do you know any professors at Dallas universities who study Dallas?
I know one. My history professor at Collin College told us about a lot of this stuff.
Michael Phillips?
Oh, no, it was not. I didn't know. No, there's two. He told us about this. He showed us pictures of all the history of the lynchings and all the hangings. He showed us that Collin College was built on top of a plantation, an old plantation, things that we were never taught. Sure. And so seeing this book come out is impactful for me myself because I didn't know that. Yeah. I'm a native of South Dallas. I moved to Rowlett. Didn't know any of that stuff. So let me ask you this. What do you think the status is of reading now with all the technology on the forefront? How do books stay in the forefront? How do you keep this type of movement going?
Well, I think there's two things about that. Number one is that books, reading and writing are a universal art. Like storytelling is something innate in humans, right? In every language, every culture around the world. And any presentation of books as anything elitist or only for white people or rich people or anything like that is just bullshit. And we're here to like smash that down and invite everyone in and say no matter who you are, what your background is, where you are on your reading journey in life, right? You may just be reading comic books, right? And you want to take the next step up. Let's say you're only reading romance novels and you're interested in seeing something new, or you've never read a book in translation, or a writer in Dallas. You don't read enough black writers, women writers. All these iniquities in our society you can handle through literature because the stories are there, the artists are there. And so for us, we have a bookstore in Deep Ellum. It's vital to our mission as a nonprofit to have a place where people can come in and engage with what we do and then all this other amazing art. Because we're only one tiny piece of a much larger publishing industry, right? We only publish 60, 80 books a year. That's a lot for a small publisher, but in New York, you know, they publish 1 million books a year. And the other second thing about that is there's some really amazing science and technology I always want to mention about books. They're not going anywhere. If you read something on your phone, it goes to the short-term recall part of your brain, and if you read something in a print book, it goes to the long-term recall. Every culture of the world has print books that look exactly the same, no matter what the characters or language it was written in, and the reason why is because books are a perfected form of technology, and so they're not going anywhere. But how do we get more readers in? Not just for sales, but to engage and talk about the books and and read bravely and read creatively. Reading is an act. It is an intentional act. And you can try to be a passive reader in this life and just read whatever's thrown at you on the bestseller list or on the front table of something or on the front pages of the newspaper, the magazines, or what the influencers are telling us to do. Man, there are layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of what we are not being told. And as you can tell, that's what Deep Vellum is interested in.
Okay. Last question for you, and I'll let you go. You're not talking on the show. You're coming by.
Coming by. I would love it. As you can tell, I love talking, and I'm very passionate about this stuff, man. It's fun.
What is the one failure in your life that you say impacted your career the most? The failure, not the success, but the failure.
Oh man, there are a lot of failures. I'll say. Well, I mean, the greatest failure is I applied to 3 PhD programs right out of undergraduate for Russian literature. That's actually my passion is Russian literature. Everyone's like, "Oh, you got this cool dream job at Deep Vellum." I was like, "No, my dream job is like sitting around talking about Russian books all day." But the sort of failure there is that I didn't get into the school I wanted to go to. I was accepted to one, but I turned it down. And that set me off on a different path in life. I said, I'm going to go on tour with my best friend's band instead, which kept me out of the PhD program, which I'm very grateful for now because I feel like the work we do at Deep Vellum is essentially my PhD. It's very creative. It's it's like a comparative literature degree for the entire world. If I was in a PhD, I would have to focus on one thing so minutely that you drill all the way down. There's something cool about that, but I feel like my skill set is something I learned on tour with the band and became very entrepreneurial. And so that when I got to Dallas many years later, I was like looking not just to have a job, but to be a part of a community, to really try to build something. And I don't think the PhD path would have done that, right? There are plenty of other failures along the way too, minuscule on a day-to-day basis, like when I don't make my kid happy on the way to school. I feel like that's...
I'm a dad, I understand. I'm a girl dad, so I get it.
Yeah.
Dude, I love your passion.
Thanks, man.
Very nice to meet you. Yes, you're welcome anytime. Of course, man. Anything you need, let me know.
Appreciate you.
Nice to meet you.